Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. Again, I am Kaylee Batesman, the Content Director at SheCanCode, and today we're asking, what is a sponsor and why do you need one? Today I have the fabulous Jessica Regan, Project Program Portfolio Manager at BAE Systems, to discuss the positives of having a sponsor, how to get one, and the differences between sponsorship and mentorship. Welcome, Jessica.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And can we start with a little bit of background about yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did a maths degree at university. When I left there, I then went in and did a couple of years at a PCB manufacturer, kind of rotating around different departments. Had no real idea what I wanted to do. I then went and spent 3 years at a sports betting company managing software delivery. So did partly business analysis and then also project management. Preferred the project management. So then went over to BAE Systems, and I've been there 4 years now, project managing loads of different sorts of projects.
Yes, I get a little bit jealous when people say that they took maths, because I was really bad at maths. So I wish it was something that I'm still really bad at maths, and I'm dreadful with numbers. It's something that I just wish that I could do. Was there something about it? Did you just find it easy, or was there a teacher that encouraged you? What was it about that STEM subject that really drew you in?
I was definitely very lucky to have some good teachers, so that helped. I'm quite severely dyslexic, so actually words for me are a lot harder. Maths is much easier, and I was toying between doing a maths degree or going down the veterinary science route, and I kind of went backwards and forwards on it. And then when it came to actually crunch time submitting my applications, I thought, well, they don't like you taking time out for maths. So if I do maths and then decide, no, I definitely want to be a vet, I can always go down the other road. Whereas if I do it the other way around, that's kind of it. So yes, it worked out very well for me. Hardly any writing. So that was a good degree. No dissertation.
Yeah, you tend to be one or the other, don't you? You're frightened of one, I'm frightened of numbers. But at BAE, you're a project lead on the BAE Systems Digital Intelligence Space Systems Program. Is that correct?
Yes. So we've got a big project. So I head up the software delivery for one of our big space programs. So I work with about 40 different software engineers across 4 different teams, delivering in a agile methodology in various different languages, depending on which bit of code they're writing. So some of it is really low level code that goes actually on satellite, and then we launch that into space. And then there's all the ground software, which is a bit more normal kind of JavaScript type code.
Amazing. One of those amazing jobs where we love on this podcast to hear the range of roles in technology. But that one sounds like one of those really cool ones. So today we're going to be discussing sponsorship. Can you kick us off with just a bit of an understanding of what is a sponsor?
So a sponsor is someone who is quite senior normally, recognises your talents, and is in a position to push you forward for opportunities. It's something that I had only heard of kind of the word for it probably 18 months ago. But when you think back to your career, you think, oh yeah, no, I definitely had those people that would be counted as sponsors. So yeah, I've been quite lucky to have some really good sponsors through my career that have pushed me forward for opportunities I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, I think it's a word that you don't hear often, do you? I mean, you hear the word mentor a lot. I mean, what is the difference between a sponsor and a mentor? Because we all seem quite familiar with a mentor. Sounds like somebody else that helps you climb the ranks.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
So for me, I think most mentors would know that they're a mentor. So you kind of have that agreement. You might have regular check-ins with them. You probably work through your day-to-day life problems. So they are slightly separate to a sponsor who probably isn't interested in, that you're having trouble with one of your colleagues or you're struggling to solve this problem. They're normally more senior than you by quite a way, and and yeah, they probably don't even know that they're a sponsor. They just identify you as someone that they think is pretty good at their job and deserves to be pushed forward for things.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's not as much of a commitment with a mentor. It tends to be you make time to meet with that person. You might have a coffee, or you might have met via an internal mentoring matching program. But what you're saying is a sponsor probably doesn't even call themselves that. They don't even tell other people that they happen to sponsor another colleague. They're just someone senior that when they're sitting in a room can make sure that they name drop you every now and then as the person that you need in that next position, for instance, or somebody that everybody in that room needs to know about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think mentors you normally stick with for quite a long time. You normally, agree to that partnership, and even peer mentoring, and you do it for a considerable period, or, for a certain part of your career. Whereas sponsors are a bit more flexible, I think, depending on where you are at the moment and your current management chain. It's probably different sponsors, and you'll find sponsors pop up through your career. Somebody you worked with 3 or 4 years ago, suddenly you find you're in the same department as them again, and they're now sponsoring you again.
Yes. So, and I suppose in a big company as well, that is incredibly valuable. I mean, not all big companies, at some big companies, if you get in the wrong one, it can be quite challenging. You might disappear into the teams and, you do your day job and that's it. But if you're in a company where, your name is being brought up in the right places, that must be incredibly valuable. But I was going to ask you about the benefits of having a sponsor, but I suppose that's the most obvious one, that your name is brought up when it needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also gives you kind of cross-department opportunities as well. If that person's moved into a new job role somewhere else and you're perhaps not happy where you are, you can always reach out and say, oh, anything cool come up in your area? I'd really like a new challenge. What have you got?
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, because there's been so much research around ladies in tech who come into tech and then later in their career, most likely in their 30s, they leave. And it's always the question of, why do they leave? What is it that those companies are not doing to retain them? But if you've got people in other departments that are giving you other opportunities, then you might feel more likely to stay put within a company that you like, but just that you've got extra opportunities coming from other departments, instead of feeling like, I've got to jump ship entirely and go somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say we are quite well set up for that internally. All our kind of resources, as it were, are a central capability, and then you're put onto projects. So if you don't like a project or don't like an area, it's quite easy to say, particularly as something like a project manager, where you have got quite flexible skills, oh, actually, that department really interests me, that customer really interests me, what opportunities are over there? And you can go and reach out within your network or kind of through official channels to see what other opportunities you are. And because we are such a massive company, a sideways move quite often will mean a completely different management chain. So it feels, quite like you've moved companies. I've been quite lucky. I've moved around a couple of times, and it's a totally different kind of style of management almost in different areas.
Yeah, I'd never even thought of that as a bonus, actually, of working at a big company. It must feel like you're completely moving jobs and just moving teams. Some companies, they don't like that, though, do they? They don't allow people to move across teams, which seems very strange to me, because if you've got good talent, why wouldn't you just hold on to it? Why wouldn't you just allow it to be that flexible? If that person wants to change, then let them go and learn something new. But yeah, I suppose if you've got a sponsor in place, so that becomes much easier.
Absolutely, yes. If you can find the argument for you moving into that new role, then you're far more likely to get it. Making sure that you've got the right people on board to promote that move is really important.
Yeah. We've mentioned there a little bit about a sponsor that makes sure that they remember to name drop you in a meeting. But what makes a good sponsor, other than that, just to sort of remembering to bring you up when they need to?
I think it's also about their standing within the business. So if they're quite well respected and liked by their peers, if they put your name forward, it's a good suggestion. Whereas if they perhaps haven't got the best understanding of the business and perhaps the political lay of the land, then they're not going to do the best job at pushing you forward for things that you'll actually be able to get.
Oh, okay, so you could have a sponsor who thinks they're doing you, thinks they're doing a good thing by dropping your name in, and actually they're not.
Yeah, I think it's always good to have as many opportunities as you can. So if they're going to name drop you, all well and good. The more people that hear your name, the better. But if you're going to invest in nurturing that sponsorship relationship and make sure you're visible to someone, make sure you pick someone who's actually in a position to influence, rather than investing a ton of time in someone who doesn't necessarily have sway.
Yes. Yeah. Not. Well, I was going to ask you next. How can you go about finding a sponsor and getting a sponsor? I suppose, as you said there, if you're investing your time in the wrong person, really you need to just make sure that you identify somebody that would be a good sponsor. Is probably the first thing to do, and then work on that. I take it, if some sponsors don't know that they're a sponsor, it's not that easy as just going up to somebody and saying, will you be my sponsor? How do you do that then? Is it just making good connections with influential people in your business?
Yes, and being visible. So I wouldn't say any of my sponsors know that they're my sponsors, but I do make sure that if I've done a good job, they know that I've done a good job. And my name will pop up in various locations. I volunteer for lots of what I call extracurricular activities within the business. So certain clubs, whether they be kind of sports clubs internally or part of the dyslexia network and things like that, that just give you access to senior people. And then rather than kind of sitting back and being quiet in those forums, making sure you're putting forward ideas and being seen to be contributing.
Yeah, I suppose if you're a company that doesn't have many clubs and networks, and I've had ladies on here before that have said, if it's not there, just start one. And you spoke there about being visible and just making sure that if there isn't a club there, start one. If you feel there isn't a network for a group that you wanted to be part of, then I'm sure most companies wouldn't be against you if you wanted to launch something. So being part of a big company is great because a lot of those are already in place, but doing anything to stepping forward to make sure you're visible surely is something that most companies would encourage.
Yeah, the one brilliant bit of advice I got in my first ever job was we'd been away on a business trip, and when we got back, I'd been away with someone quite senior, and they said, right, you need to do a write-up of the last 3 days and send it round to all the leadership team. I was like, oh my God. And I think particularly as women though, we are really rubbish at singing our own praises. And this was a way to be visible and say things had gone well, but actually I was just writing a report. I was just saying what had happened. And I've always tried to do that. I don't always follow through wherever I should, but wherever something's happened, we've achieved something within a team, I try and write, a short email even and send it around to the leadership team. So you're then showing, even if it's not you, you're singing your praises of your team, but it's your name on the top of that email and it's your name in their inbox that they're seeing time and time again with good news stories, and they'll associate you with success essentially.
That's a great piece of advice, and it's something so simple as well that I think a lot of us probably haven't thought of, or if you had to go on that that workshop, and then afterwards you thought, oh, thank God, you might be thinking, thank God I just made it through alive. I don't want to speak about it anymore. But that tiny little thing on the end can really increase your value, even as a summary of what happened, as you said. Yeah, that's great advice. I've never heard that one. We spoke about visibility, and so do you think that having a sponsor increases your visibility at work? I suppose it's just having that advocate, isn't it, behind closed doors to as we mentioned, to be able to not just name drop you, but I suppose push you forward for other opportunities as well. And having that sponsor just must massively increase your visibility across different departments, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes when we think about this, we think too big. So we think opportunities in another job role in another area or something like that. But actually, opportunities can be so much smaller than that. And being the name that's on the tip of people's tongues when they go, they've got a big customer meeting coming up and they need someone for the technical team to come and represent, anything like that is, makes you more visible, but also it gives you so many more learning opportunities.
I suppose that, again, that comes back to finding a sponsor that knows that you're the type of person that would want to do that as well. I think
Yeah.
It would be incredibly frightening if I had a sponsor and suddenly I got told, oh, a client, you need to present to a client and there's going to be hundreds of people there. I'd be like, oh my word, who put me forward for this?
Even in that situation, if
Yes.
you're the person that gets things done, you could say, oh, I don't think I can do that, but I do know someone who can, and I'll fix that for you. I'll sort that out. Don't you worry about it. I've got that covered.
Yes, great advice. Instead of throwing it back at them and saying, that's not for me, you now have a problem because you've told leadership that somebody will be coming with you. Yeah, great advice not to just kind of leave it in their lap. I suppose as well, because they're thinking, I won't put you forward for another opportunity again. It's okay to say no, but as you just said, maybe helping them find a solution to that problem instead of just feeling like it's been thrown back at them. Thanks, but no thanks. That's absolutely sounds terrifying for me. But I will find someone else that can do it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
We spoke a little bit about visibility in the workplace. Are there other ways that you think women in tech can become more visible in the workplace?
We're quite lucky at BAE that we've got a really good marketing team. And so I've reached out to them on a couple of occasions when I needed something doing, and then vice versa, they've reached out to me when they need things. And wherever I can, like I say, either I'll do something for them or I'll find somebody who can. And even this opportunity came through them. And kind of the more I do with them, the more opportunities I get and the more visible I am. We mentioned about putting reports around internally, particularly to your leadership team, about successes. Quite often, most internal companies will have like a blog area and things like that. So you can write bits for your intranet. The more places your name and your face kind of pop up, the more visible you are, the more you'll be in people's minds when they think about new opportunities.
Yes, and I suppose as you said, with this podcast, people automatically thought of you, that you would be a great person to have on here, and you're absolutely right, other speaker opportunities, and I was just thinking then, even things like internal awards. Do you have internal awards at BAE, or things where you recognize employees just to make sure that everybody knows of the great work that they're doing?
We have some internal ones. We also have quite a few external ones that we like to push people forward for. So the We Are Tech Women Awards, we normally have quite a good representation from BAE. I've actually nominated a couple of my colleagues for their Rising Star one that they've got open at the moment. So they always are really good, and the company's really good about kind of promoting the people that have been nominated, particularly as it gets through to the voting rounds. It's kind of all over LinkedIn and things like that. So it's also a nice way for you to give visibility to your great colleagues as well.
Yeah, so you're a sponsor in that sense. Then you put forward other colleagues for awards, and you probably didn't even know it, but you're a sponsor.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm assuming, it always it works both ways, doesn't it? Other people will put you forward for awards, and you might get that email where somebody has entered you for something, and you didn't even realize, or you didn't even know they existed, and you've been entered for it. So yeah, I suppose it all goes round and works in circles, doesn't it? I think a lot of people think that the strength of their network is knowing other people as well, other companies, and thinking that the opportunities always lie in my next role and the next company that I'm going to, and perhaps sometimes forget to really make sure that they nurture those connections internally. So like you said, putting forward your colleagues for awards is something that colleague will most probably really cherish, that you took the time to do that, and has really strengthened your relationships with that team.
Absolutely. And saying thank you as well works quite well with your sponsors.
Yes.
So if they have done something for you and pushed you forward for something, make sure you reach out and say, oh, really appreciated that, thank you. Like I say,
Yes.
they'll be happy to put you forward again then.
Yes, and something so simple, isn't it? It's something that we forget often to do, is just to thank somebody for putting you forward. We spoke quite a bit about visibility, and I wanted to ask you, why it's important to be visible. We spoke a little bit about obviously the opportunities that it offers you, that speaking opportunities, for example, or opportunities to present. But we also spoke a little bit about, being visible across different departments. Something that we speak a lot on here is about we call them squiggly careers, and careers that perhaps don't take a very straight path. I suppose that helps, doesn't it? Being visible, if something comes up and you want to take a different career path, I'm not talking about a massive career shift within a company, but surely being visible means that you can take more risks like that. You could change jobs within a company because people are more aware of your skills, and that you might be suited to a completely different role in another part of the company. Would you agree with that? Do you think that's one of the reasons why it's important to be visible?
Yeah, I would definitely be an advocate of a squiggly career. I would say mine definitely looks like that. For someone like me that is reasonably ambitious and looking to climb, being visible is really important. Probably not for every woman in tech it's as important. If you're quite happy where you are and your aim for the next few years is just to become highly technically competent at what you do, then it probably isn't as important. But if you are looking to kind of jump around, take up different opportunities, try different things out, climb reasonably quickly, then being visible is really important.
Yeah, and being visible obviously ties into role models, and making sure that people can see the type of role that you do and why they might want to go into that themselves one day. Do you have any amazing women in tech role models that you look up to, and that you either aspire to be like, or you look at and think, God, I'd like to be like that?
Yeah, we've got some really good ones internally. So Miffy James, who's our digital transformation director, she's incredibly visible. She does lots of kind of volunteering for various different things, highly technically competent. Yeah, all round brilliant.
I
I
do
also,
know Maybe James, I must
yeah.
say. I knew her in a past life, and I must say she is absolutely amazing. And when I've heard her speak, and so incredibly down to earth for somebody that knows so much as well, and an amazing advocate for women in tech. So yeah, I completely agree with what you just said.
Yeah, I also met Annabelle Snaith, our Home Affairs account director, the other day.
Yeah.
And she stood up talking to about 100, 150 people, and she was absolutely captivating. And I thought that's what I'd like to be. I'd like to stand at the front and look like I really know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yeah, I'd love to do that. I think sometimes, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, you go to women in tech events and you hear these incredible ladies at the front, and they're giving their stories. And I remember being told, you just need to be yourself, because those ladies are being themselves. They are authentic and standing up there, and that's what's so captivating about them. And I think I used to sit there as a young person at these events, and I think, oh, I'm never going to be like that, and I was just thinking, I have to tell their story, and I might get given an opportunity to do a presentation about women in tech, and I'm thinking, what were the stats that Mivy James was rolling off in her speech? What are the stats that I need to tell everybody, when actually the value lies in you sharing your story and your journey. And even right at the start of this, hearing that you took maths, and what a lovely story to hear, that you knew what you liked and you knew what you wanted to do, and would be so inspiring to lots of other girls that enjoy maths, and can hear what type of careers that they can go into, also because it sounds like you've got a very super cool job at BAE Systems. And is there anything as well that you resources that you like to draw upon? You mentioned a couple of networks. Are there any books that you can share with us, or any women in tech networks that you are a part of that you think our listeners should hear about?
So last year I read a couple of books. I think one of them was Break Your Own Rules. I think we've mentioned kind of what I call extracurricular activities. It's really easy to pick up too many. Yep. And it's really easy to do too much. Being a woman, you can't just be brilliant at your job. You've also got to have other strings to your bow to really be kind of accelerated forward. And last year, I definitely picked up too many of those things. So some of those books are about, right, what's the focus? What is it that you want to do? And go after that and only that. You cannot, be brilliant at work and as an aspiring CEO or CTO, and also have the perfect family and clean house and everything else. So what is it that you want, and go after that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's I think we get carried away in thinking that some people have all of that. Some people might have all of that. It's absolutely fine. They might have help. You never know. You might have the help at home. But you're absolutely right. I think it's just realizing that, your limits and what you would like to do, or what is important in your life, and also important in your life at certain stages of your life, because those things that you want, they change all the time, and they change with if you get married, have a family, all of the things that you thought were important might change, and that's okay. And I think it's just being true to yourself and being at a company that allows you to be flexible and to change through your seasons of life as well. But Jessica, I'm really sorry, we're already out of time. I could continue talking about this all morning, but we are already there. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you.
Angie, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. And to everybody listening, as always, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time.